missing people today? What's happening? Okay, well, good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk about unions. And so what we're going to do, just to orient yourselves, we're going to start off with just going through this article on the economics of teacher unions in the United States. And so the basic idea behind this article really is to give you a flavor of the history of unionization within the United States. And then also, what are some of the positive arguments that have been advanced for unions? And also, what are some of the drawbacks of unions? And then what we're going to do from there is we're going to pivot into the readings. And so, in particular, we're going to look at a Hawksby paper. So this is how teacher unions affect education production. And the basic point behind this paper is trying to understand what's the causal relationship of unions in terms of school district spending on pupils, also on teacher salaries, and also on other inputs into the educational process. So we're going to understand the institution itself, and then we're going to understand how this institution affects the inputs. And then when we look at the Logan review, we get to see how that's going to affect student outputs. Right? So this is kind of giving us a complete picture. The other thing that's going to be really important about today's lecture is going to be some of the techniques that we will learn from the Hawksby paper, which I'll go through in detail, will be relevant for the project. Let me talk a little bit about the project. So we've looked at, in the first half of the course, students' decisions to pursue higher education. We said that this is going to depend a lot on the cost and the benefits. But we developed this whole framework of present value. So you incur the cost today, you experience the benefits tomorrow, right, of investing in education. Another component that was really important to this cost-benefit analysis was really how long are you going to be in the labor force for? If it's just a single period game, then it's like, well, why am I going to, if it's like, let's say a 2-period game, like we had on the midterm, the question might be, well, only if the returns are sufficiently high am I going to do this. Because I'm missing out on an entire period to earn income. I have one period with which to like reap the benefits from getting an education. And so how long somebody expects to be in the labor market is going to be a very important determinant for this investment decision. And the project, you're going to be able to take it in one of two directions. We're going to look at unilateral divorce laws and the impact on women's educational decisions. So the basic idea is the following. In states where there's a unilateral divorce law, a woman can just, or a man can just say, I'm going to exit this marriage, right? And this changes the expectations that women and men have for being in the labor market. If prior to the passage of these laws, it was that women specialized in domestic production, being homemakers, the advent of unilateral divorce laws could actually increase the probability that they would expect to be in the labor market, right? And so then the question is, given that, do we see women investing more in education? Which is a very interesting research question. So actually, when I was teaching this unit, in the first half of the course, I started to think, well, you know, there are a lot of papers that have been written about the effect of these laws on the longevity of marriages, but these laws should also influence the probability that a woman thinks she will be in the labor market, and also the length of which she's going to be in the labor market too. And so it should affect these educational decisions given the frameworks that we set up to. And so this is going to be like a very fascinating topic that you can undertake. I'm going to distribute after the break a handout that goes through a paper that talks about the unilateral divorce laws. So this will give you a sense of like the timing of these laws and like also the regression model that's estimated to see the effect of these laws on marriage. But instead we're going to be looking at the effect of these laws on educational decisions. So that's one direction that we can take the project. You're going to have a choice. The second is to look at these 3 strikes you're not law. So what these laws did was, if you had 3 convictions, after the 3rd conviction, you got like a pretty onerous sentence, like maybe 20 years, 25 years of life. And so what this did was this effectively would remove people from the labor market permanently, just for that extra infraction, going from 2 infractions to 3 infractions. And these laws, it was shown to have a particularly detrimental effect on African Americans and African American young men. And so when these laws come into play, we can think about these laws as affecting the probability of a black man who believes he will be in the labor market. And so this should distort or impact his educational decisions. If the expectation is after 3 strikes I'm going to be out, then it's like, well, why should I get a college education? I'm just kind of like sitting here with this college education. And so we want to look at what's the impact of these laws on the educational decisions of black men as well. And these 2 topics, to my knowledge, have not been done in the economics literature. So like if you find a paper that's done it, that's great. Like cite it and let's think about how to improve on it. But if you don't, these potentially can, these will actually contribute to the knowledge and the understanding that economists have of these models of human capital and how beliefs about how long somebody's going to stay in the labor market influences their decisions on the extensive margin, either to go to college or not to go to college, and on the intensive margin, how long will we get an education. And so like I'm very excited to see what you find on these projects. And there's also the potential for those of you who like do this, like particularly well, or who want to continue on and do like a master's thesis or undergraduate thesis, or even just to write a paper. Like I would love to write a paper with you on this topic. And so this isn't just something for kicks. Like this literally, to my knowledge, is something that has not been done in the economics literature. So I'm giving you a project idea that I came up with that's relevant to our course that can also contribute to knowledge in economics and can potentially be a published paper for you. And I would co-write it with you like afterwards too. And so this isn't just busy work. So those are the two projects. What I'm going to do is in the second half of the course, I'm going to distribute some of the resources. So one is going to be a Wikipedia article on the 3 strikes and job laws, and so that's going to give you a roadmap in terms of like when these laws were passed in which states, and then you will be responsible for going out and like collecting a lot of the relevant data to be able to answer this question. I'll also give you an article on unilateral divorce laws that was written in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. And the articles that we're going to discuss today about unionization, so the Hoxsey article in particular, is going to exploit differences in the timing in which states pass laws affecting unionization. And so effectively what you're going to be doing is comparing what's the spending in school districts in states where there is unionization versus in states where there's not unionization. And because this is changing over time, we can see when a state turns on unionization, how much more do they spend on children, like relative to previously when they did not have unionization, and also relative to their peers who may have had unionization before they did. And so that's effectively the comparison that's going to be happening. Okay. So let me just stop here and ask if there are any questions before I jump into the lecture.
Is the project individual?
No, group.
Okay.
So you do it within your groups. You definitely do it within your groups. And feel free to talk to like across groups as well too. Like at the end of the day, I want you to do like really good quality work. Like don't copy each other's work across groups. But like you can talk to people outside of your group too to get ideas and to sharpen each other's thinking. But I want you to work in groups because when you do research, so even when I do research, most of my papers are written by other folks because they think differently from me. You can also do division of labor. So one person can go and one person can like think about how do we get the data. The other person can think about let's write down the model and which variables should we include. Somebody else can think about like what's the related literature and so on and so forth. So definitely leverage the depth and the experience of your group. Other questions? Okay. And then on Tuesday is fall break. Am I correct in saying that? Yes. How many of you guys are going away for fall break? Woo! All right, well, enjoy fall break. Thursday, there is class. According to my knowledge, I expect to see you in class. Yeah. No extended fall breaks. Okay, good. All right, so let's jump in. Okay, so we're going to talk about the economics of teachers' unions. Why am I writing here? I'm going to start over here. Take 2. So today we're going to talk about the economics of teachers' unions in the class. So this is the article by K. Strunk. All right. So, okay. So, what are the two major unions in the United States?
The NBA and the AFT.
Can you speak up a bit louder for me, please?
Oh, yeah. The National Education Association and the Federation of Teaching.
That's right. So we have the National Education Association, which was founded when?
1857.
Yeah, 1857. And we have the American Federation of Teachers, which was founded when?
1897.
That's right. 1897, first is the Chicago Federation of Teachers, and then it goes on there. Okay. Now, how many, between these two unions in the United States, like what is their membership as of 2010? What's their total membership?
1.6 million.
4.6 million. And this is teachers and other personnel. Who remembers how many secondary and elementary school teachers are in the United States in total from the last lecture? 9.2. So this is almost like roughly like half, right? Wow. Like compared to that. So this is huge. This is like 1%. This is more than 1% of the total U.S. population. If we look at the total working U.S. population, this is probably 3 to 5%, right? Okay. Now, there are a couple of things that I want to emphasize about the unions, right? So there are three major features of the unions that make them really powerful. Who can tell me what those three features are? Say it again? Yes. So they can, yeah. So that's what they do. Let's hold on to that for a moment. Like, what are some attributes of the union that makes it really powerful?
Collective bargaining?
He just said that.
Oh.
What do we have up here so far? What do we know about this union?
It's huge.
It's huge, the size, right? So let's say what makes unions, or let's say teachers unions, influential. Right? So the first thing we look is the size. Size matters, right? So you have lots of members. Okay, what's the second thing?
Contributions to election campaigns.
Exactly. And so we can call this like lobbying, right? And how much have unions from 1990 to 2010 contributed to major campaigns? $15 million. Yeah. So major political contributions to influence lawmakers. So you have 50 million, right? Which is, I mean, like that's a ton of money. Like just to put this in perspective, like once the election gets into high gear, a major political candidate, like a Republican or Democrat, can raise on the order of 50 to like $100 million a month, right? And so this is around the ballpark of like how much a major political organization can like raise nationally, right? So like that's not like a trivial figure. What's a third feature of unions? So we have this American Teachers Federation of Teachers starting out first as a union of Chicago teachers, and then it spreads. So what do we call that? You have these unions are where? They're everywhere, right? Like they have affiliates like across the entire United States. So you have like this one union, but this one union is represented in Arizona and Arkansas and Minnesota and these other places too. And so the network, right? So by that, what we mean is that they have like affiliates in every state school district. So it's just like a political party, right, in the sense that you're really large, right? Number one, there's a lot of internal lobbying for what kinds of policies are going to be the official position, right? And then in terms of the network, you have like a local, we have college Republicans on campus at Clemson, and we have college Democrats at Clemson, also at USC, and all of these other schools too. And so you have this really large group of people, because imagine if the unions were just large, but they were all concentrated in New York. Their ability to exert influence on national politics will be very limited, right? So size in and of itself is not enough, right? The network is important for being able to exert that size in a concerted way. But the network without the money or the political lobbying may be ineffective. You have a lot of people that have like, you have a huge network, but then you have no money, there's nothing that you can do. So these three factors are going to be really important. Okay, now what do unions do? And this is the answer that we had previously. That's right. Well, what's collective bargaining?
It allows union members to negotiate with employers.
It allows union members, or who does it allow to negotiate with employers?
Employees.
No. Who's doing the negotiation with the employers? The union, on behalf of the employees, right? And so we're all a part of this course here. We form a union, and then what happens is we say, okay, we really want to have more projects in this class. We want to have more programs. And you just make a list of demands. And you elect some people to be union leaders to advocate to me as the professor on that on the grounds, right? Or to the administration that helps them. Is there a question? Okay. So unions negotiate with employers on behalf of their members in the process called collective bargaining. And this is defined, right? Okay, good. This is defined. All right. Let's see. Okay. Well, what are some of the things that unions will let me back up a little bit. This is what unions do. Okay. Now let's talk about collective bargaining. Okay. What do collective bargaining laws cover? What three things do collective bargaining laws cover? What's the first thing that they cover?
Teachers' contracts.
Say that again?
Teachers' contracts.
No, the collective bargaining laws. What do they prescribe? So let me, collective bargaining, so let me say, okay. Let me make a little note here, right? So these laws vary by state. And some of this text is really, what I've done is really identify the key parts of the article to take them out. So some of the wording will be similar to what you see in the text here. And so let me just make that copyright explicit up front. So union laws vary by state. And they govern the right to organize. how schools and school districts. This should be the right of workers, teachers. I'll put that there. They also govern how schools and school districts are organized. Sorry for the repetition. And they also govern the terms of collective bargaining. Okay, what do collective bargaining laws typically cover? What three things do they typically cover?
Union representation.
Union representation. So we can say covering. What do we mean by union representation?
It specifies who is covered.
Yep. Exactly. So this is like, who is covered by the union? So is it just what types of workers? Who's covered by the union? How is the union certified? And by certified, this means like established as a legal entity. And also decertified. How many of you guys have watched the movie Aaron Brockovich? Or like any movie where you have a group of people that bring a lawsuit against like a pharmaceutical company or like a tobacco company. What you have is you've heard of a class action lawsuit. And so the first thing that has to happen is you have to get everybody that's been harmed by this company, and then you have to form a class. And the class is the group of people that have been harmed by this company. And before the lawsuit can proceed, you have to go before a judge, and the class or this group of people have to be certified. They have to be sufficiently similar, have sufficient claims, and then also be affected in the same way, right? And the reason why this happens is because it's more efficient to like interact with a group of people than say like just one person. At least this is the intention behind it. What's the second thing that these collective bargaining laws are going to require?
What can be bargained for? Like what part of the teacher's day?
Yeah, so that definitely is going to be what can be negotiated. And they're also going to require that the unions and the teachers act in what? Good faith, right? Which means what?
There's cooperation between both parties.
It's close. And so good faith is going to mean what? What is, because we may not cooperate, but does that mean that we're not acting in good faith?
It just means that negotiations are fair.
That's fair is a bit stronger, right? Because something may not be fair, but does that mean that it's not in good faith? Like let's say, for example, we decide that we're going to split the pie. I get 60%, you get 40%. You might say that's not equitable. That's not fair. But good faith has to do with that the intentions and the attitudes were seen to be like honest. Like basically like no gamesmanship. If you said, look, if you're able to raise salaries by 5% per year for the next 5 years, we will sign an agreement. And then the management actually does that, and then the union says, oh, by the way, like we want to get 6%. They were just using that 5% to see how much they could get. That would be an example of bad faith. Okay. And so it's like honesty, transparency. So these laws are going to require that the union and management operate in good faith. And the fourth thing is going to be what? What if you negotiated in good faith, but you still can't get an agreement, right? So they're also going to cover what happens when negotiations fails. Right? So can the union strike? Or not? So this is the legality of the strike. Does it go to mediation or arbitration? So on. All right. And then also too, what are the consequences of the legal strike? So I have a little story about this. So my mom is a professor of chemistry at the College of the Bahamas, where I went to undergrad before coming to the US. And when I was 12, the union struck at the college. So the workers, all of the professors like walked off the job, and the line staff walked off the job. And they protested for a couple of days. And so I remember being there at this protest, like videotaping what was going on, and just seeing the management come in and the union barricading some of the doors, and the police coming in and like getting some people off of the private property. And there was just so much activity that was happening there. But what you see too is that a lot of the actions were prescribed by the law, right? In order for you to be able to strike, you have to call a vote. The vote has to be affirmed by 50% of the union members, and this is how long you can strike for, and so on and so forth. And so a lot of this is like very, very by the book. Okay, great. So let us continue pushing on. Yeah. And let me add a fifth thing here. So the other thing that these laws are going to cover is what's called right to work provisions. And who knows what right to work provisions are going to cover?
Whether, did that have to do with like vacation days and stuff like that?
If it's mandatory for you to join a union, that's.
Exactly. And so states that have a union shop, for example, the only way you can work as a teacher in those states is if you're part of a union. So right to work is going to say, right to work provisions, what they do is they're going to prevent unions from requiring all teachers to join and pay fees. Because what's going to happen is, so this union representation is going to say who's covered by the union. So even if I'm not a union worker, suppose that the place that I worked had a union, and the union negotiated, the union still is going to be negotiating for all of the teachers, those who are in the union versus not in the union. And I, as a non-union person, will reap the benefits of the higher wages from the collective bargaining agreement, but I won't incur any of the cost of paying for the union representatives to represent me, et cetera. And so you get this kind of a free rider problem, right? So in some states, it's going to be the case that everyone is going to have to belong to the union. Or even if you don't belong to the union, you're going to have to pay union fees because you're reaping the benefits of the collective bargaining, right? And there are going to be other states that are going to have right to work provisions, where as a worker, you are not obligated to either join the union or pay these fees in order to work there. And in the Hawksby paper, she's going to take advantage of differences in the timing of these right to work provisions to really estimate what's the causal effect of unions on things like per pupil spending, teacher salaries, etc. Okay, good. All right. So, okay, we're doing good on time. Okay, great. So, any questions so far? What are the claimed positives of unions? So in the article it talks about like what are some of the, so proponents of unions are going to say unions are good for these reasons. So what are reported positives and negatives? Yes. Reported positives and unions.
Attracting higher quality teachers.
Okay, so that's one of the claims. What else?
Lower student teacher ratio.
Okay, so changing some of the inputs, yep.
Teachers focus on teaching because they don't get rid of their stuff.
Yep, so this is like specialization, right? So your specialization. Teachers focus on teaching. And the union negotiates on behalf. Because imagine if each teacher went and individually negotiated a contract, right? The idea here is going to be that, well, the teacher may not have enough information to be able to do that on her own, or may not have the power to do that, right? And this brings us to our second thing. So normally when we think about a monopoly player in a market is what? What's an industry that has a monopoly? What's the feature? How many buyers and sellers are in a monopoly? Okay, and how many buyers? Many buyers, right? Okay. Now, a school district is a monopsony. What's a monopsony?
It's just one buyer.
Right. One buyer but many sellers. Yes, exactly. Okay. So unions can reduce the monopsony power of school districts. Because as a monopsony, what can school districts do to wages? Right. So what we mean is we just have one buyer labor. So these are the school districts. And then sellers. So this is an Econ. This actually is a pretty, I mean, like, I like this, right? So we have specialization, and we think specialization educates economists, reduces monopsony power. There are some informational reasons to that are offered as to what are the benefits of the unions. What are those informational reasons that are given? So, I'm going to call this informational improvements. So the first is that the teacher knows best how to improve student outcomes. And the union gives power to this voice. The second informational argument that's given is that you can streamline communication between teachers and the administration. Because instead of having to talk to individual teachers, the administration can talk to unions, and then the unions can talk to the teachers can talk to the unions, and back, and so on and so forth, right? And then we have streamlined communication between management and teachers. Okay, good. Now let's talk about the negatives. What are some of the negatives that are mentioned in the article? So what are the purported negatives of unions? And it's important to think about these two things because this is when you consider the positive sides and the negative sides of a particular decision, what are these called in economics? Yeah, this is the cost benefit analysis. You consider the trade-offs, right? Okay, good. So what are some of the negatives?
Inefficient resource allocation?
Yep. Why might we have inefficient resource allocation?
Because if you have a fixed budget and a lot of it's going to salaries, that means less is going to other resources.
Exactly. And so the basic idea is unions are advocating for teachers. Teachers want higher salaries, right? The higher salaries have to come from somewhere else, and that's going to redistribute money from other uses towards teacher salaries, right? So inefficient resource allocation. So teachers want higher salaries. And that comes from spending money on other stuff. What else? What's another one? Can you guys read this, or is it not legible?
We're getting there.
So it's
Yeah.
Say that again?
We're getting there. but
What happened?
It's just hard to read.
I'm so sorry. I will write more clearly. So this is inefficient resource allocation. Teachers want higher salaries, and this must come from spending money on other stuff. If anything is unclear, just let me know, okay? So don't feel shy about that at all. My apologies for that. So there are a couple other things too. So one thing too is we have uniformity of teacher incentives.